Welcome to the channel and welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's jump straight into it. Loads to go through. We've got talk of Ekitike's price dropping, Onana staying, more reports there, Jadon Sancho, the struggles with his exit and a few links. Loads to get into, and let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with, let's go through the Ekitike stuff. So Graham Bailey said Premier League clubs who are interested in Hugo Ekitike are being told that he will be allowed to leave Eintracht Frankfurt for less than his €100 million price tag this summer. Now, Graham Bailey, I would say straight away, take with a pinch of salt. He can be hit and miss, suggesting that teams, that Frankfurt will allow Ekitike to leave for less than the €100 million asking price this summer, which is interesting because and I think the general feeling on Ekitike from what I've been reading and listening to and everything is that that's quite an expensive fee for a 22-year-old unproven player that's had one breakthrough season, and I would agree. But then also Paul Hurst from The Times, who's a good source, has said that Frankfurt sold Omar Mamouche for £63 million and would seek a similar fee for Hugo Ekitike. Now, I haven't actually read that article, so I don't know if that's an opinion piece or whether that's what he's been told. I think it's more of an opinion piece, but so take it with a pinch of salt, even though Paul Hurst is a good source. And I think that would be the bargaining tool for United or teams going to Frankfurt to negotiate to say, well, you sold Mamouche, who's having a better season and is more in his prime and everything for £63 million, yet you're asking for £85 million for Ekitike. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on, because I do think if the problem is if his price drops and we're competing with Chelsea and Liverpool and we create a bidding war, is his price not just going to go back up because teams are then bidding with each other? I think the key for this one, if we are going to pivot to Ekitike and go away from Gyökeres, is you need to get the personal terms done first, like we've done with Bryan Mbeumo, where we've got a verbal agreement. He wants to come to United, so even if teams outbid us with Brentford at the moment, and Mbeumo's no, I still want to come to United, so it's about us negotiating that fee. That's what we would need to do, I think, with Ekitike, is get some kind of buy-in verbally, or with him only wanting to come to us. So even if Chelsea and Liverpool then did come in for him, it doesn't matter. They're then negotiating with us. That's the only way I can see us competing with those, especially with Liverpool throwing the money around at the moment. But interesting, keep an eye on it. Obviously, his price does drop. Does he become more desirable? Let us know your thoughts on that in the comments. I do think he would need to drop his price for anyone to go for him, which is maybe where they're at now. Frankfurt thinking that they would say, well, actually, we've got teams interested in Ekitike, but no one's biting, no one's making any offers, because that's a ridiculous price for, I think anyway, someone of his, not of his quality. He's a quality player, looks a really good footballer, but just the inexperience, the age, the fact he's had one good season is a risk for teams to pay that sort of money for him. But we'll pay attention to it. Give us your thoughts and your shouts on that in the comments. That would be interesting. Just sticking with Ekitike, Sky Sports said agreeing personal terms with Hugo Ekitike will not be a problem for United. The player is believed to be open to a move. United have held preliminary talks with Frankfurt to inquire about the terms of the deal, and there is no official offer yet. So that was the news that broke at the time I was recording yesterday's video for you, coming from Sky Sports, saying that he's open to the move. We've had talks with his agent, personal terms will not be a problem. Now, in terms of talks with the club, Fabrizio Romano has said that Ekitike is a player appreciated by the club, and also Christopher Vivel, who knows the player well because he's worked in the Bundesliga with Hoffenheim and RB Leipzig, so he's always monitoring Bundesliga developments. But then Romano also said that Man United spoke to the agent of Hugo Ekitike in the last 3 days to be informed if the player has committed his future to any other club, discussing with Eintracht about his price, but still very expensive for United. So I think that the talk of talks between us and Frankfurt are being a little bit over-egged. I don't think we're at that. I think we've maybe made an inquiry to say, like, what's the asking price or what's the initial price for Ekitike, and just maybe to find out if they're negotiating with anyone else and all that fajazzle. But I don't think they're as advanced as what it's being made out by some other outlets. But we are in, Romano's confirmed, definitely talked to his agent, definitely finding out a bit more about the deal, maybe made initial inquiries with Frankfurt regarding it. So there's no smoke without fire. Ekitike, it does definitely seem like a player of interest. Whether we'll follow through on that interest or whether we're going to get him, who knows? I think a lot would maybe. I still think we're in for Gyökeres. If Arsenal don't go for Gyökeres, maybe he's the one, and maybe we're lining up Ekitike as a backup. But then, it's frustrating the striker situation because obviously we wanted Delap. He's gone to Chelsea. Gyökeres is waiting for Arsenal. He hasn't said no to United though. Just to be clear, he would still come to United, but if Arsenal make a bid, he would go to Arsenal ahead of United, and then would pivot into Ekitike, who's already third choice. But Ekitike, we've got competition between Chelsea and Liverpool. Going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But if his price does drop, going back to the reports, if you could get his price down, then I would be, more than happy going for Ekitike. I know there's a risk, his age and everything like that, but we can't tread on eggshells our entire life. Just because Hojlund didn't work and he's a young player does not mean that every young player we buy is going to be the same. They've all got different personalities. They've all got different backgrounds. Like, I like the fact that actually Ekitike's been to a big club in PSG and failed and then gone somewhere else and rebuilt his career. I actually like that because, it shows a bit of character, and it might help his development because he's had that moment of pain. He's had that moment of failing at a big club, gone away, rebuilt himself, rediscovered himself, and had a really good season. It's just a lot of money for someone that's un-Premier League proven. And the other thing is we don't have a good track record of expensive signings from the Bundesliga. So I am butthurt about that. But other than that, like I said, I don't think we can walk on eggshells. Just because one player didn't work and he's of the same age of this player does not mean that it's going to work out exactly the same. It is a massive risk, though. It still is a massive risk for me. But if you've got a bit more experience around Ekitike in Mbeumo and Cunha, maybe it would work. But we need to wait and see. We need to wait and see how it all plays out because there's a lot of potential things that could still happen. Like I said, we could still go for Gyökeres and get him over the line if Arsenal go for Sesko, which is believed to be their priority player. So we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But give us your thoughts, give us your shouts on Ekitike in the comments. Now let's go through quick Mbeumo update. The update on Mbeumo is there is no update really. So Manchester United are relaxed about their pursuit of Bryan Mbeumo despite being aware of Tottenham's interest in it. And Mbeumo is intrigued by Spurs but is still leaning towards Manchester United. That came from Sky, and Romano was saying discussions are still ongoing for Bryan Mbeumo. They have an agreement with the player in place but is still discussing club to club. Still no deal done. So who knows when this deal is going to get over the line. The thing is, I was thinking the other day, that players are on holiday now, so this is the time where there is going to be, I think, a bit of a lull or a bit of a slowdown just in transfers in general because players are having holidays and agents will be, maybe we're making moves and doing the initial groundwork, but until players finish their holidays, there's no real rush necessarily anyway. But and that's where I think we're at with the Mbeumo deal. Maybe in the next week or so, well, hopefully anyway, we'll get a little bit more movement regarding this deal. But it is frustrating. But by all accounts, it's still the same. Mbeumo wants to come. We still want Mbeumo. We're just trying to get the price sorted with Brentford. Now, this was an interesting story that came out. So scouting attending are quite good when it comes to players being scouted by certain clubs online. Was saying that Manchester United scouts were present to watch 25-year-old Nice midfielder Hicham Boudaoui in Algeria's 3-4 defeat to Sweden last week. Now, this was reported later in the Sun, so we'll need to be careful. But scouting attendance is actually a good source when it comes to this sort of information, which is why I wanted to get the story from there. That would be interesting. 25-year-old midfielder from Nice, so obviously makes rates deal. In terms of that, we can sign players from Nice now with us not being in Europe. Give us your thoughts. Not a player I've watched a ton of, done some research, watched some highlights and stuff, so I'm no expert when it comes to him at all, but looks an all-action, hard-working, good ball-carrying midfielder, not one that's progressing the ball for those that want a ball-playing midfielder. This is more of a, someone that can get the ball, run with it, make tackles, interceptions, hard worker, has a bit of an engine on him as well. Actually looks like he would fit the profile of maybe what we're looking for, the physicality, all of that stuff. Actually Doesn't look like a bad shout. He's valued at 15 million euros on transfer market. Said from Nice, we would get obviously a mates rate deal regarding it as well. It's another midfielder. It's a midfielder that we're obviously scouting and looking at. Who knows whether we'll follow that through with any action, but it's nice to see that we are looking to make moves in the midfield, because I share your concerns from comments on previous videos about the midfield being another priority that we need to look at. But I will bow down to your knowledge on this one. What are we thinking? Let me know if you've watched him. Good player, bad player, good shout, bad shout. Let us know your thoughts on that in the comments below. It'll be interesting to hear what you've got to say regarding that. Now, that's not the only midfielder that we've been linked with. So Manchester United are showing keen interest in Inter Milan midfielder Davide Frattesi. And that came from Sasha Tavolieri, who did a story. I can't remember which one it was. I don't know if it was the one with PSG's director of football coming to United and then it got instantly dismissed, but was also one of the first journalists to announce the Florian Wirtz deal to Liverpool. So I would say is hit and miss, but been decent recently, suggesting that we're keen on Davide Frattesi. Now, not the first time that we've been linked with the midfielder, and I did some more research after we were linked with him before as well. Looks a good player, very, very Scott McTominay-esque in terms of his ball playing. It doesn't seem to be a ball playing midfielder. I don't know if he's got the, I think he's a good player, but he's more of a goal-scoring midfielder or someone that gets into the box and crashes into the penalty area and a progressor as well. And I don't know if that fits the profile of necessarily what we're looking for, but would be a good player. Apparently Napoli might be interested though as well. So whether this is a story, trying to get other teams interested, putting his name around there, who knows, but would be an interesting option to bring in for the midfield. But it's nice to be linked with a couple of midfielders, albeit I'd want to see way more credibility than where these sort of stories are coming from. But it's nice that we are maybe looking at there are some options for that particular area. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, there's a story yesterday regarding Andre Onana staying that came from Samuel Lucas, and the Athletic are also confirming a similar story as well, saying that Andre Onana's representatives met with Old Trafford officials last week, and while the Cameroon goalkeeper is expected to stay at Manchester United this summer, the club may still sign a backup goalkeeper to provide competition for him. So Samuel Lucas yesterday was saying that Onana is expected to stay, and then maybe we would be looking at a backup. Now the Athletic are coming out, so good sources. Well, Samuel Lucas is a shit stirrer, but he's got connections, and the Athletic are one of the best sources around for news and transfer news, and Mike Critchley is actually a really good source as well, suggesting that Onana is set to stay, and we're looking to bring in maybe a backup goalkeeper instead, which it is what it is. It is what it is. We need to get a lot of money for Onana. He's on high wages as well, and who's going to pay big money for Onana on big wages given the season that he's just had? And that's the problem. The only place would be the Saudi Pro League, but there's not really been any more movement on a couple of sources saying that was it Neom SC or FC were looking to make a bid, and nothing's materialized since then. So I just don't necessarily think the interest is out there in Onana. But if you bring in a good young player that is actually sort of, Onana does drop a clanger next season, you can just say, right, you're out the team and we're just going to give this lad a run until they make a mistake and do that, then that would, I would be cool with that. As long as they're of the ability to become a first team player or can take over from Onana, then I'm actually, it is what it is. We are where we are with the exits. We're relying on teams wanting to buy our players, and unfortunately we've got some players that we would want to remove, but there's just no interest in them, and that is what it is. Now, in terms of possible replacements, Manchester United want 40 million euro plus Marco Carnesecchi. Corella della Sera state the stopper is coveted by Manchester United, and he would be a worthy successor should Andre Onana be sold this summer. Atalanta value their young goalkeeper at more than 40 million euros, and that came from Corella dello Sport by a Sport Witness, suggesting that United are looking at Atalanta's young goalkeeper. I think he's 24 years old, does look like a good shot stopper, but it's hard to judge goalkeepers I'm no expert when it comes to goalkeepers, so I have no idea. I think 40 million euros is way out of our price range and our budget, though, of what we're looking for a goalkeeper. But John Murta is now at Atalanta, is there, so maybe you'll do. Maybe because of his transfer dealings, he'll accept something less, because we know that he's amazing in the transfer market at doing deals and negotiating prices. He negotiated Hojlund's fee up from 40 million to 70 million. So he does a good job when it comes to that. So hopefully maybe he can do the negotiations so we can get that a bit lower. But another name to throw in the mix. I would want to see a bit more credibility, though, personally. I think Martinez is the most linked goalkeeper, but I don't think we'll go for Martinez if Onana stays. Lemens is another one. Chevrolet is another one. Young goalkeepers to potentially bring in. So keep an eye on it for you, but give us your shouts in the comments below. Good option, bad option. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, let's go through some more exit news. So Rasmus Hojlund wants to return to Italy. He really likes the Inter option. However, Inter need to reach an agreement with Manchester United. Now, that came from Alfredo Padula, who's a decent source as well, was really, really hot one summer. But a little bit hit and miss since then as well. But it's a bit more credibility regarding Inter. We know there's genuine interest from Inter because Romano's confirmed it. But the rest of the reports have been coming from like Corriere dello Sport and Italian outlets like that I don't know the credibility of. But Alfredo Padula is actually fairly decent as well. So that's interesting that he's suggesting that Rasmus Hojlund wants to return to Italy. He really likes the Inter option. However, Inter need to reach an agreement with United. So maybe we could see a bit more development on that in the next coming weeks as well. Yeah, we'll need to wait and see how that plays out. But I want to see a bit more credibility than Alfredo Padula being truthful regarding that. But we know there's no smoke without fire. I do think Inter are interested in Hojlund. Whether Hojlund would be interested in going might depend on whether we get a striker. Yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. Another player that we're going to be struggling to remove is Jadon Sancho. So Manchester United are facing an uphill battle to find a buyer for Jadon Sancho, as the Old Trafford outcast has made it clear that he will not lower his salary expectations despite being open to returning to Borussia Dortmund during the summer transfer window. Sancho is refusing to lower his wage demands to quit Manchester United, according to Gimme Sports sources, resulting in it being increasingly likely that his current employees will have to continue paying a portion of his £300,000 per week salary in order to facilitate a move to Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund are interested in exploring a move for Sancho, Gimme Sports sources have learned, but they are waiting to discover whether there is any way around his salary situation before formally committing to a pursuit, as they are not entertaining breaking their wage structure to meet his demands. So that came from Danny Russ and Dean Jones, who are decent sources. From Gimme Sports, suggesting that one of the issues we're having with Jadon Sancho is that he does not want to take a pay cut. He's on a massive wage, and that's going to be the problem. That's the problem with a lot of our exits. It'll be a similar thing with Marcus Rashford as well, although the reports are Marcus Rashford is more open to taking a pay cut depending on where he goes, but he's waiting for Barcelona. Barcelona at the moment don't really have any big interest in him. I think he's like their third choice because they're very heavily invested in Nico Williams. And then they might look at Luis Diaz after that, and then it would be Rashford. So he might have to do something. And then Sancho's obviously not prepared to take any pay cut, as we've seen with the Chelsea. Refused 150 grand a week. I think it was on offer from Chelsea. Refused it. That's the problem. That's going to be the problem, because we need to move on with our lives. Like everybody, like surely these players want to leave as well and do something, but they don't have to. Contractually, they're obliged and they've got the money, so it's not necessarily all on them to do it. But that's the problem with United is the wages of some of these players is just going to trap them with us. And he's got a year left on his contract. So I can see a situation where we're just going to have to keep him or do something this season. Can we loan him? Someone mentioned in the comments before that we can't loan a player in the last year of their contract. I don't know if that's true. Let me know down below. If it is true, then we're stuck with him and we have to try and do something this summer. Or do you do the +1, loan him out with an obligation to buy, and then do it that way round? Who knows? But if it's yeah, let me know in the comments if that's true or not. But then Sully Talks, though, has said that several Saudi teams, including Al Hilal, have inquired about the conditions of a deal for Jadon Sancho. Early contact has been made, but nothing advanced yet, and few European clubs are also interested. He is refusing to take a significant wage cut. So Sully Talks is a good source. Been right loads recently regarding, team news, injury news, transfer news as well. So that will be interesting. But Saudi teams have come in, I think, every year for the last couple of years for Sancho, and he's never wanted to go. Whether that would change now, because if he is wanting wages and money, obviously the Saudi league is the place to go for that. But whether he would still want to go or not, who knows? But European clubs are interested, but he's refusing to take a significant wage cut. And I don't see any teams out in Europe, like if Chelsea are offering him £150,000 a week, what are other teams in Europe? Because it's not like he's going to go to Real Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern Munich or places like that will maybe pay similar to what United would. He's going to be going somewhere where their wage structure is a lot different to United, and that's going to be the problem. But we'll keep an eye on it for you. The one place, though, so Napoli are making an attempt to sign Jadon Sancho from Manchester United. Now, that came from Damarcio. There is talk that Napoli might be looking at or moved away from Garnacho, because the reports on Garnacho is that he's asking for silly wages across Europe as well. He wants to stay in the Premier League, and he's pricing himself out of moves to certain places across Europe as well. Napoli might be interested in Jack Grealish as well, but we'll need to wait and see what happens there. But maybe Sancho is another name that Napoli would be interested in. But again, if it's down to salary, I don't know what Napoli's wage structure is, whether they would get anywhere near what he's wanting or what he's asking for, who knows. Sky was saying, though, that Napoli have 45 million to spend on either Jack Grealish or Alejandro Garnacho, but will only sign one of them. So need to keep an eye on the exits, because there's a bit more noise regarding them, but it is really frustrating because, getting rid of some players, like if we want to rebuild, we hear this all the time, and this was something we some of you mentioned in the comments as well. We hear every summer, rebuild, massive rebuild, squad overhaul. And then when it comes down to it, in order to sell players, you need teams to buy them, and teams out there that are looking to buy our players do not have the wage structure that we do, and will not pay the players the salaries that we have, and with the form the players are in as well. Who's buying the players? That's the biggest concern for me. But it would be interesting to see how it all plays out, and if Ineos and Wilcox, Barada, and Vivol and Amorim and everybody like that involved can actually finally get some deals done and get rid of some of the players that need to be removed. But we'll wait and see how it plays out. Long summer ahead, because the transfer window, don't forget, doesn't close until September the 1st. So we might want to get things done quickly. But teams might wait till right at the end to lower prices for players. And that's just the way that it is. So we've got a very, very long time towards the end of the transfer window. So some of these deals might not get done till last minute as well. But we'll keep an eye on it for you. Give us your thoughts in the comments below. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer news. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.